When Kobach was a law professor, he had a side gig where he was peddling his services to right-wing causes. He wrote a law review article about the need to keep non-citizens from voting, and that the way to do this was to have documentary proof of citizenship. And this was going to solve the problem that he contended was massive voting by non-citizens. The Kansas legislature, in a bipartisan fashion, I'm sorry to say, passed his idiotic law.
It had this impact of really making it harder for certain groups of people to be able to register to vote. And there was also the additional issue of it was rolled out in such an expedited way that a lot of people, just didn't have the time to go and get those documents if they had lost them at some point.
Everything about what he has done is consistent. It has been one consistent vision from the day he showed up. And what is also consistent is that it is divorced from the law, contrary to the Constitution, and repellent to the people at large.
January of 2013, I moved here, and coincidentally, that was the year that documentary proof of citizenship, Kris Kobach's sort of signature voter suppression effort, went into place.
The big game was the direct challenge to the documentary proof of citizenship law in a lawsuit called Fish versus Kobach.
Fish was an important case. It challenged Kansas's documentary proof of citizenship requirement in order to register to vote. So many people were disenfranchised as a result of that. And I think one of the problems was, yes, it's burdensome to go and, have to present all this extra information to show you're a citizen in order to register to vote. But a big problem was that people weren't being informed until they showed up to vote that there was something non-compliant or that they had missing information.
In an attempt to preserve this deeply, deeply flawed documentary proof of citizenship papers, please requirement, he attempted entirely on his own to create a two-tiered system of voting where some people would get to vote in federal elections and only federal elections, and everyone else would get to vote in everything else. You don't get to do that, especially in Kansas.
So Fish was just wins across the board. I can't describe it any other way. There was a win at the preliminary injunction stage, which was why the law was enjoined when I first registered to vote in Kansas or re-registered to vote in Kansas. That was appealed to the 10th Circuit. The 10th Circuit said, no, the district court got it right. There was a summary judgment decision saying just about all of the claims could go forward. Then we were successful at trial. And then that success at trial was upheld by the 10th Circuit. There was a petition to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, even when this was post-RGB Supreme Court, that sent it back and said, no, I think the 10th Circuit and District Court got it right.
We wiped the floor with Kris Kobach.
This was clearly a violation of the National Voter Registration Act. It had constitutional implications, and it was poorly litigated on the side of the Kansas government.
By the time we got to trial, it was clear he didn't really know what he was doing, especially not in trial.
In what I think was a somewhat unusual move, the Secretary of State's office defended the case on its own without the support of the State Attorney General's office.
In the first appeal in Fish, when we went for oral argument, he was late. He showed up late to the oral argument.
There were times when they would submit briefs with huge errors, with comments still in there. There was also, significant issues when we were at trial. I mean, there were a number of times where Judge Robinson had to explain to Secretary Kobach, this is how you lay the foundation in order to introduce evidence or ask a witness a question. Things that most people... Lawyering 101. Lawyering 101, things most of us learn in law school. Or mock trial, or you mock trial in high school. Very possible you could have learned it before then.
It's this time to mention when he was ordered to go back to class.
Yeah, I was actually, I sat in on the deposition. We got to depose Kobach. Yeah, he got in trouble with the judge.
During the trial on Fish v. Kobach, Judge Julie Robinson, who was appointed to the bench by George W. Bush, was so taken aback by Mr. Kobach's behavior and his apparent lack of knowledge of how legal proceedings are supposed to unfold that she required him to attend a continuing education class on basic trial procedure.
I was happy to be in the audience at the courthouse when the judge told Kris he needed to go take some remedial legal courses. I almost laughed when she said that, but it was a federal court. I mean, we're really supposed to do that.
It was sad, I tell you.
In the 2018 Republican primary, there were hundreds of ballots not counted because they said that their signature on their mail ballot didn't match. But they never even tried to contact the voter to ask if that was their signature, if something had happened, like a stroke that had changed their signature to not match. And it was clear that counties some of them were throwing out votes that should have been counted, and no one could know what was happening because the counties refused to release any information or data about these folks.
Kris Kobach's assault on everything that we hold dear was not limited to just the documentary proof of citizenship case. He went after voting rights in every place he could.
So the first lawsuit for data was in Johnson County, and we won that. And then I tried to request, because we have 105 counties. And so I found out that the Secretary of State's office should have all of this data from all the counties. And so I was like, instead of bothering 105 counties, I'm just going to ask the Secretary of State. But they took the stance that the Johnson County ruling didn't matter and continued to deny access to the data. And that led to the second lawsuit, which was then on a statewide level to, guarantee the right, for transparency and accountability at a statewide level. And we also won that case.
We challenge that because the Constitution is for everybody, not just the chosen few.
Where things get a little wild is there was then a following case, because right after we won access to the statewide data, the Secretary of State's office decided to turn off the ability of their database to produce the report as a way to just try to, fight transparency. And it was so bizarre. We actually went to the appeals court, and then we won in the appeals court, which was the final say, which actually not only was important because it showed a standard of government officials can't try to game the system. They can't try to find a workaround to say, well, it is an open record, but if we play this little game or change the code in our software, then we just don't have to comply with open records. The appeals court ruling made clear that if a record is open, it's open, and the public has a right to see it.
Everything about his vision is something that deserves to be rejected, is being rejected, and will continue to be rejected because it has no basis in the law, in the Constitution, or in what is right and wrong. He hasn't learned that. The rest of us have, though, and that's why we know how to deal with him. That's why we at the ACLU know how to respond to him, and it's why we kick his tail all the time.